Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Ferdbird the Nerd with a brand new magazine collectible market report for you all. I've been kind of dabbling a little bit into the magazine realm. It's a really different market for comic books. I think it's not even at like the first inning, I would say. There are some specific magazines that go for a lot, and there are different reasons why magazines go for more. Your obviously first appearances really haven't actually turned the corner for it yet, but I am going to talk about kind of the information. This will be a lot more informational. A lot of these magazines don't have a lot of sales on them specifically, and I have a bunch of these on my watch lists, and also I do have some myself in my collection. And then at the end of the show today, I'm going to do an unboxing. Well, I already unboxed them. I already know the grades, but I wasn't really happy with these grades. But this is just experimentation, seeing what I could actually get, and for grades on these two particular magazines. But if you do enjoy these shows, this is a new one. We'll see how many views we get on this guy. But click that like button, subscribe to all your friends, and I'll keep doing these shows. So let's get into it. Coming from the comic book investor or collector, what have you, the biggest thing with comic books is always the first appearance, and that's not so much in magazines so far. I think a lot of people want to see that first cover, which goes for quite a bit. Myself, I prefer the first in the guts, just because I come from that background. But I totally get it, that the first covers do a lot better. And arguably, there can be some discussion about what the actual first appearance in the guts of a magazine are too. And the cool thing about the magazine market is it's so vast. There's so many different ways you can invest into it. I'm particular into like the Pokemon, strategy guides, video game stuff, because it's a little bit easier to get into. But first off, we have Nintendo Fun Club News number 3. Now, this is the first appearance of Zelda in a American magazine. If not, I guess you could say this is like the collector's first appearance. This is an incredibly fun collectible to go after. I want this really bad. There's one listed for $125, but the back is torn. I may just do it just because I want a copy of this. Maybe later down the road I'll find a better one. But the way to get this particular magazine was to go be part of Nintendo Fun Club News. You had to subscribe to the series back in the 80s, and this is the 3rd issue. So I don't know if this is like lower print because it's a 3rd issue, but I believe the first issue of this has like Mario, but I don't know if that's the first appearance of Mario. I know people kind of revert to that blip cover, which is horrible, but I thought this was really cool. Again, 125 listing for this. There's a 9.6 that's been on eBay for like ever. That's going for $20,000. I guess if you put that in perspective, I guess it kind of makes sense, because this is I would say arguably the number one Nintendo character of all time. I know some people say Mario, or even, some say Kirby. But when you think of games that all ages, all people play, I think it's Link, Legend of Zelda, all the way. So, but there's your first appearance, and good luck. Going on to strategy guides now. I know, Pickles, you hate me for all this, but man, there is money in these strategy guides. I think it holds a nostalgia thing, but a utility thing as well. People really like to still use this to play the games and beat everything and hit all the missions. But you have to be kind of careful when you're actually buying these to invest in, because they do include certain things, like, for example, a map, like this guy does. There's a double-sided poster included. Just make sure if you're buying this to have the map inside. $60 for a fine version of this, or a fine condition. I could see like the Game Boy Advance version of this, where it does literally say Game Boy Advance on the cover, goes for about triple digits. So that's the one I think if you're a collector you want to go for. But if you're purely off of nostalgia and all that fun stuff, go for this one, because this one came out prior to the Game Boy Advance version. Another really fun one. The other thing about magazines is there's like, I don't know if you can categorize like the first international, first in general kind of appearance of a magazine, or if you can go with the first American appearance of a magazine. I'm just going to stick with what I know as far as knowledge is concerned. So Weekly Famitsu from March of 2017. This is the first appearance, as you can tell, of Breath of the Wild, arguably the best game of the past 15 years. People say that. If you're coming from the comic book, segment of my shows, this is the UF4, in my opinion, of video games as far as like magazines are concerned. I believe you can grade these. They're very thick. The one that I just saw listed earlier was going for $400, which I think is a very fair price. If you think of Ultimate Fallout 4, first appearance of Miles Morales, it's a Japanese magazine, so it's very cool. I don't know if this is going to be affected by tariffs. I just don't really know about that. Obviously, a lot of the copies are coming from Japan. I don't know where you could find these like locally, but a really cool piece, and it's perfect. You got the first appearance. You have the old school Link handing the sword off to the new school Link there, and I just think it's great. I think if you're a Switch fan, if you're a Nintendo fan, if you're a Zelda fan, this is a must-have for your modern collectors, and it's probably going to hit pretty high going forward. Keeping it again, Pokemon Nintendo, you're seeing a little bit of a trend here. Some Pokemon guides, by the way, are not gradable. I tried to submit a couple Pokemon guides, which I don't have kind of here, but they're like, I think about 1.5 inches thick. I thought they'd grade, but evidently CGC says no, we won't grade them. But just keep that in mind when you're trying to buy these to grade, because they can come cheap, but if they're not gradable, it's really expensive, and they hit you with an $8 charge. So $30.99 for this. This sold for $400 and $8.5, which is a really high grade for a strategy guide, by the way. The thing with strategy guides is if you can find someone that can get those fingerprints out of them, send it to them. Just have them grade it, because the difference between a 6.0 and an 8.5 in strategy guides is a lot. And these strategy guides are typically like 20 to 25 years old as well. So again, just make sure, like this guy there's maps for every region. Make sure that if you're trying to grade these, make sure it has the map connected, not just included, but connected, because you can get docked for that as well. I think this is my last Pokemon strategy guide for this episode, but $29.99 for a fine version of Pokemon Red. The other one that goes for quite a bit of money is obviously the blue. People say this is like the red, blue, and green versions are like the triad of Pokemon games, but I thought this was really crazy. 7.0 sold for $800. That's a pretty low grade. So if you get lucky, if you find one that's in like OA condition, has some thumbprints on it, make sure it doesn't have stains, stuff like that. I mean, again, kids were taking these to school, eating on lunch, playing their what have you. But a 7.0 for $800, that is insane. I think a 7.0 would look pretty close to what this one looks like, but if you get 8.0, think about it, that's like $1,200. This is like one of the examples of a pretty cool magazine that has a very important pop culture icon in it that does not show on the cover. Shout out to my boy Trey. You have had me on the hunt for this for the past 3 years. We talked about an OTR before, but if you haven't watched OTR in the past, I'll bring it back to you guys. Golf Digest number from 1981. I forgot what year it comes out. I think it's November. But this is the first, not cover, but first mention of Tiger Woods in a magazine. $400 for this guy online. I think that's the most undervalued collectible literally on eBay. So if you have the money or you're in the market or you're a huge Tiger Woods fan, just get it. I mean, this has nothing to do with condition to me. This has nothing to do with, whatever. I mentioned the first appearance of Michael Jordan within the guts of a magazine as well. If you missed that one, we'll talk about it maybe next week. But this is a pretty cool article about Tiger Woods being kind of a protege. He was like on, what was it, like Johnny Carson or something, like, hitting golf balls like two years old. So really cool. I think what's nice about this piece is it's something that I bet nobody cared about reading the article about Tiger Woods. Some kid that may or may not be something, but they did an article about him. So, and it's Golf Digest, which is basically like the golf magazine to buy in general. So really cool article, really cool piece. And I think just because it's not on the cover, I think there's a lot of value in this particular piece. Here's something that is inside the book and on cover. Animation Magazine #1. This is the first Simpsons magazine. I have a copy of this and probably a 7.0. It's in my like forever collection. It's also the first animation magazine, which, just an FYI, if you go to Animation Magazine's website, there are a ton of potential first appearances of Beavis and Butthead, South Park, I think's first appearances in there. A lot of really cool covers if you are just wanting to scoop up those. I remember when this was first mentioned by, I don't know who mentioned this to me first, but regardless, you could still get copies of it on animationmagazine.com. And that was a couple years ago. I don't know about now, but I think I scooped up 3 copies of South Park's first appearance in a magazine. There's no recent souls of this book, or of this particular magazine. However, I think a 6.0 is asking for about $4,000, which I thought was insane. I've seen a 9.4, which is the highest grade I've ever seen, go for about, I don't know, like $3,000 or $4,000, but that was during the pandemic. Really cool collectible. You can kind of see it. I know it's the old school art when, the first Simpsons came out, but I think this is like this. I mean, obviously Simpsons has been the longest running TV show ever. And so to have a piece of that history, it's going to hit every single genre. So whenever I show this off to people, everyone always asks me about this magazine. So, and last but not least, we have WWF from May of 2002, not 22. But this is the first Brock Lesnar magazine, and 9.4 is listed right now for $400. You can get this pretty easy, or for pretty cheap. But I felt like, again, with magazine collectors, you're seeing the market kind of gravitate towards that first cover, and I think this is a perfect cover. And I don't watch wrestling anymore, but I remember Brock Lesnar just kind of being this like force. And I mean, he didn't really roll over to like pop culture like Hollywood. However, I still thought this was a pretty important book. If you can get a newsie of this, I think that's the way to go. But these go for really cheap, so it's not a huge buy-in if you're a Brock Lesnar fan. I just want to maybe hit that nostalgia of May 2002. This is the one to do it. But anyway, that's your market report for magazines, which I think is a pretty cool genre to kind of get into. And if you guys do like this show, please hit that like button, subscribe to all your friends, and I will keep doing these. We'll see you live next week. We're going to have a pretty cool show for you guys and all types of collectibles. Hope you have a great weekend and take care.